Hey everyone, my name's Dom. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the upcoming house brick of a book of Darkness and Light by Ryan Cahill. So do the usual like and subscribe stuff, and then I'll see you in a mo. So this is the second book in a series that is fast becoming a firm favourite, The Bound and the Broken by Ryan Cahill. Now, as this is the second book in a series, I'm going to stick to my usual rules of doing a spoiler-free review, but due to some of the situations that come up in this book, there may naturally be some mild spoilers for book one. So if you haven't read book one of Blood and Fire, I recommend that you go away and do that, and then come back to find out more about book two in the series. So recently I put up a joint review of book one in the series of Blood and Fire, and also the prequel novella The Fall. You can find that in the normal place linked in the cards in the top right corner, or by browsing through the videos on my channel. Now, although there are two trains of thought on this, the idea is that you should read both of these before coming into Of Darkness and Light. I personally prefer to read chronologically, so I read The Fall first because it's set 400 years before the events in Of Blood and Fire. I think Ryan himself says that he recommends reading Of Blood and Fire first and then The Fall second, but either way, whichever way you do it, the idea is that you should read both of those books before coming into Of Darkness and Light, because you will pick up some additional information and some additional background, and that'll just help to enrich your experience of reading Of Darkness and Light. So to get some of the basics out of the way before looking at the book in more detail, I will say that this is an absolutely stunning book. It is released on the 31st of December, and this review copy does look slightly different, where you've got the kind of a tagline at the top and the date down at the bottom, but it is roughly how it will look in physical form when it goes on sale at the end of the month as well. This is just under 900 pages, this particular paperback, because it doesn't include the comprehensive section at the front of the book detailing events of The Fall and of Blood and Fire. So when you pick up a retail copy of this book, if you do need a refresher, you can get that before you start the actual story itself. It does have in here, though, a glossary and character list at the back of the book, and there are also, as well as the beautiful map that was included in the first book as well, there's also some fantastic artwork in here by the author's brother, and my understanding is that there is an additional couple of pieces of artwork that will be included in the retail version of the book when it does go on sale as well. Now, with regards to the story itself contained within these pages, I will say that Ryan has done not quite the impossible, but certainly the improbable. He gave us an excellent first book with Of Blood and Fire, and here I truly feel that he has improved on that first book in every single aspect. Now, this isn't hyperbole, this is, well, I can't say it's fact because that's subjective, but this is cold, hard opinion. Every element of this book just feels like a real step up from what came before. The characters, the world, the storyline, the writing style itself, everything just shows the signs of a writer who's really honing his craft with experience and getting better so far with each book that is coming out. So let's go and take a look at some of those individual aspects. So as far as the characters go, I said for book one that it was primarily a single person perspective, with the majority of the story told from Cailin's point of view, and then you get additional characters who get sort of half a chapter here and there to tell their side of the story as well. Here we move to a more complete multiple POV story, and we get more Dan, we get more Rist, more Ella, we have more of Eric and Darlan and Kalenvar, and because the second book is nearly twice as big as the first one, on top of all of those, we probably still manage to get more Kaelin as well. One of the real pleasures here, though, is having more Farda as well, who's fast becoming a favourite amongst the people in the Oasis Discord, where we've been buddy reading this book through November and December. Farda's very layered character gives us a lot of opportunities for his storyline going forward, and there's always that kind of fear in the back of your mind for Ella, who he's travelling with, as he tosses a coin to potentially decide her fate on pretty much a daily basis. And then another personal favourite of mine is the introduction of new characters with Dane and Alina and Mira and their kind of intertwined storyline of oppression and rebellion, which I really look forward to seeing progress as the story goes on and see how that intertwines with the storylines of all of the other characters as well. So the world is expanded on as well with those new characters plotting to liberate Valtara in the west. We've got various scenes that are set in Drufane down at the south. We start to explore the burnt lands and more of the north with various characters there. We also have various scenes that take place deep underground in and around the Dwarven stronghold. So there's a lot of the world continuing to be explored and unveiled to us step by step as our characters progress through their storylines. New creatures are introduced as well, with wyverns seeming to take centre stage, and that's a really nice addition to the story here. So we've got dragons previously, we now have the smaller and slightly different wyverns as well. We have the kind of nightmarish Carathlin as well, which gives some really intense scenes with our heroes trying to battle through those. And we have the mysterious Angan, these shape-shifting humanoids who I feel are going to play a bigger part as the story goes on. Now, as usual, I won't delve too deeply into the plot of the story to avoid giving away spoilers, but I will say that it's a very engrossing storyline, or multiple engrossing storylines, and there's plenty of action, but also plenty of heartfelt character moments in between as well. The book starts out at a bit of a breakneck speed for those first few chapters, but after a while it does slow down a bit and allow you the opportunity to catch your breath. And those slower moments, as well as binding the story together, they give us some really nice character moments as we start to explore the relationship between different characters, but it also allows us the opportunity to learn a bit more about the world and about the magic that we have on display here. One thing that I definitely love about the storytelling here is how well it is obviously planned out in advance. So I found myself on a couple of different occasions reading through, and there's a bit of an itch in the back of my head as I feel that I recognise a name of a character, for instance, and then when I found out why I recognise that character, and it's someone from maybe early on in book one who was essentially just an extra, it's a really nice payoff, and it's nice to see these characters being interwoven throughout the overall storyline. So overall, it is an absolutely fantastic book. I had a really great time reading this, and it is easily within my top 2 or 3 books that I've read this year, and I've had a really good reading year, so that is definitely high praise. And if the series carries on this strength of story and strength of writing into the next book and beyond, then it's going to give us something really special to look forward to. So where does that leave us in terms of ratings? Well, I think it's pretty obvious from everything I've said so far that this is easily a 5-star read for me, but let's go and take a look at the weighted ratings and see how the individual elements stack up, and see how Of Darkness and Light stacks up against my reading history. So starting off with enjoyment, and this is a really strong start for me. I gave it 19 out of 20 because I just absolutely loved every moment of this. And although it was 900 pages reading through on my Kindle, I absolutely flew through it because I was having such a good time reading this. For world building, I've given 18 out of 20 because we've had some definite improvements, a lot more of the world and the creatures and the history coming out in this second book in the series. I love with the fantasy series how you do get more as the series goes on, and that's definitely on display here. For the characters, I've given 17 out of 20. As I've said, there was some real improvements. I really appreciated the kind of switch to a multi-person narrative. I think that worked really well. I think the characters themselves show great growth, and the new characters coming in, as I've said, were really interesting. And I didn't find that there was a single character who I was reading about and thinking, I'm not as into this character and I want to move on to the next one in the next chapter. All of them really did a good job at holding my attention, and I appreciate that. For the plot, this was another 17 out of 20. The overall story from start of the book to finish may seem a little bit basic, but the individual elements that go into it definitely are not, and they all really contribute some really exciting moments, and I was really happy with where the overall story went, the new openings that are coming through, and the continuation of some of those threads that we started out with in Of Blood and Fire. The writing style I had a really good time with. I gave this 9 out of 10 because I was just really at home with Ryan Cahill's writing here. It's definitely a style that I like, and I've seen similar in previous books, these John Gwyn's being a good example, and it really helps to drive the story forward when it's a really engrossing writing style like I experienced here. Pacing I've given 4 out of 5. It was a near perfect job in terms of the pace of writing here for me. I think if anything, just that initial opening of the book, those initial few chapters were a little bit too fast paced. It took a little while before we got a bit of a breather, as I mentioned earlier, and were able to kind of slow down, take stock of where we are and who we're dealing with and so forth. So almost perfect in terms of overall pace, but just with that tiny little imbalance perhaps at the start of the book. And then for my discretionary section, I've given this a full 5 out of 5 because the book itself looks beautiful, the artwork inside it, the map, the additional elements that you have with the glossary, the character list, a bit of information on the world and the races and the creatures, and then that kind of previously on, that catch up from the previous book and the novella at the start of the Kindle version that I read. As I say, although it's not in this copy, it will be in the sale copies that you pick up off the shelf as well. So all of those contributed to give some really good extras, and I've said before that I do love a fantasy map, but I think this series has one of the most beautiful world maps I've seen in a fantasy book as well, certainly recently. So overall then, for those keeping score, those individual ratings add up to a fantastic 89%. That is a really good score for the weighted scale. It is very rare for me to get an overall score which is so high, and that's reflected in the placing for Of Darkness and Light in my overall Hall of Fame. So all of the books that I've been using this weighted scale for over the last nearly 10 years of reviewing books, Of Darkness and Light slots in at number 10 in that Hall of Fame, so it's absolutely fantastic. It definitely deserves its place on there. So absolutely outstanding for Of Darkness and Light. Definitely recommend it if you like epic fantasy, if you like John Gwyn's Faithful and the Fallen series. I've said before that there are some strong John Gwyn vibes with this series, but if you do want a really well written, really engrossing, quite chunky fantasy series to get your teeth into, highly recommend Ryan Cahill's Bound and Unbroken. It is fast becoming a favourite. And there we have it then, a new entry into my Hall of Fame top 10. I'm really pleased to have had the opportunity to read this review copy, so thank you very much to the author Ryan Cahill for providing this beautiful book on my shelf. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of this book, if you've read it. If you haven't read it yet, is it one that's on your list? If not, why not? What more can I say to get this series on your radar? Let me know and I'll try and say it. That's it for me today though. I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope you enjoy the books if you're reading them. I'll see you in another video soon, but until then, as always, take care of yourselves, read some good books. Bye for now.